Hi, in this tutorial we're going to talk about viewing and using the North Carolina State and Local Government Profile. The North Carolina GIS community has used the FGDC CSDGN as its metadata standard since about 1994 or so. And the FGDC CSGM stands for the Federal Geographic Data Committee, Content Standard for Digital Geospatial Metadata. In 2014, the North Carolina Geographic Information Coordinating Council approved the development and use of an FGDC ISO-based standard called the State and Local Government Metadata Profile. And the ISO standards are based on the 19115 and a little bit of the 19139. It's to be used by state and local governments, and it was adapted in December of 2016. If I go to nc1map.gov, in the left-hand navigation pane, click on metadata, we can look at all of the information about the metadata, the state and local government profile. And the actual profile and the documentation for the profile is a PDF document. So I can click on the profile and I can see this. I can see the PDF document. I can look at information about it, the history of it. If I want to right mouse click and click on Save As, or actually up in the top, right mouse click on Save As, I can open this up as a searchable PDF document. It's about 29 pages or so here. So I can look at this PDF document here. And when we look at the PDF document, it's got some descriptions about it, some history of it or whatever. But we start to look at the actual metadata elements. And when we look at the actual metadata elements, we're looking at two different types of metadata. We have metadata for geospatial data and metadata for geospatial services. So we'll talk about the differences between those. Couple things about this standard. We'll see some elements that are in gray and green, or light green and dark green, and then we'll see some other elements that are going to be highlighted in brown and light brown or peach or whatever here. Okay, some of these are going to be optional, some of these are going to be required. So the ISO 19115 and the 19115 compliance is achieved by the use of the profile designated required elements, which are in the green and dark gray elements, while the CSDGM compliance is achieved by the use of the profile elements and the optional elements. So you can see the optional and/or CSDGM required elements here. And compliance with other standards is variable and may require additional elements. So you might refer to some of your business practices or business documents when it comes to your organization that have additional metadata entries that are required above and beyond the state and local government profile. The adoption of the new ISO-based standard offers an opportunity for agencies that do not currently maintain standardized metadata to engage in compliant practices. Agencies that currently maintain metadata will have the opportunity to transition from their current CSDGM template to the current standard, allowing them to document additional information and resources such as map services, geospatial models, and applications. Metadata records that include all North Carolina state and local government profile elements that are required in the optional, they comply with ISO 19115, ISO 19115-1, and the CSDGM. And the ISO 19115-1 is just an extension of the 19115 that adds the ability to attach a number of identifiers to parameters to ensure interoperability across multiple shared vocabularies and the systems that use them. There is a 19115-2 that extends CSDGM and 19115 even further to look at image and gridded data, and I've mentioned that before, but we will not talk about that here. So when we look at the elements here, I'm just going to talk about a few of these differences. We can play with these, but the publication date is required. These are some examples for geospatial metadata. So the publication date is required, and the format for the publication date, and we can look at this right here, is year dash month dash day, or YYYYMMDD. Okay, so these are all the different ways that we can specify publication date. You notice we can't put YYYY month because it may be confused with other formats, because if we want to extract information from this, and I have future tutorials on ways that we can extract data, we might get confused. And when we start to extract years, months, and dates. A couple other things about this, and I won't go through the entire document here, but the abstract is required. The status is required, and its only possible values are historical archive, required, planned, ongoing, completed, under development, and obsolete. So if I want to type in the word obsolete, or I want to type in the word status, I can do Control F, look for the word status. So I can see the status, and in my profile, you can see I have an underline right here, and I have a link. So it can tell me the status of the data, and this will take me to a domain table. So this gives me all the possible values for the progress code that can be used in there. Other elements that we have, the topic categories required and can be only one of 23 possible values. So these are some of the domain tables that we have here. So these are some of the keywords, maintenance frequency, the metadata scope. We'll talk about this in a little bit with respect to services. Here, these are the topic category codes, the role codes. And I'll mention a couple more of these. The online linkage is required to an URL address that provides access, preferably direct access to the data, so it's typically stored on the website or even an FTP site. The maintenance frequency can only be one of 12 possible values. Okay? Values include continual, annually, and not planned. Some other things about this standard: the use constraints are required, and the metadata creation date, contact name, and contact role are all required, whether that contact role be the custodian or the point of contact. And the process description is required as a free entry. So as I go through this template, as we saw before, abstract, we need to provide a description. It's free text, it's going to be required. This online linkage, this maintenance frequency code. So I can click on all the possible values that it can be. There are a couple other elements that we'll have when we look at geospatial services. Okay? So services are relatively new, but if I go to my services drop down here, this is in table 2. These are the elements required for geospatial services. So the metadata scope must be service. So you can see the very first code here, service. It needs to be service, okay, when we're working with services. A couple other things: the service type must be populated. Right at the current time, the code list is being developed, so free text can be used. And the online function code is required from a domain of one of 5 possible values. So there's some slight differences between your geospatial metadata and your geospatial services. This richer metadata enables content consistency, improves the search and discovery of data through North Carolina One Map, and creates a more seamless transition between this profile, existing profiles, and software that can consume these metadata. So it's really important that we follow these standards here. Now in future tutorials, we'll talk about how to import, export this particular template. But as you can see here, take an opportunity, go through and read this template in its PDF format, and ensure that you understand what's going to be required, the format it's going to be required in, and it gives examples of the different types of entries that we can have. So take advantage of this and be sure that your metadata is as rich so we can do content discovery and ensure that your data are publishable so we do not have the duplication of resources in the future.